Hello and welcome to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roque. I'm a voiceover artist, writer, producer, and host over there at Collider, and also co-host of the Top 10 show and the Geek Buddies. There we go.
The Geek Buddies is just killing it, I think.
We're trying to. We're not getting the numbers that Cine-Files or Top 10 does, but we're building.
I mean, it took
us time, too.
It took us a long time.
Yeah.
I think the Geek Buddies, it has become one of my most look forward to podcasts.
Oh,
it's so much fun.
Thank you.
And it's funny. We just had that Mance talk where I said, mostly I don't care about listening to whoever it is latest take on whatever it's not I don't listen to a lot of that stuff, but it's not just that I don't think it's just that I'm your friend. I think you and Mike and Shannon are great, and the show is so fun. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
So everyone go listen to the Geek Buddies. I think it's a great show.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about a movie that was your suggestion, which is La Bamba, Luis Valdez, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, the Richie Valens story.
Yep.
Here's the thing that's crazy, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but do you remember when we did A League of Their Own, and I said that was the first film that we had done that had been directed by a woman? I believe it's easy to look at our list and see that there had been no female directors. I think this is the first film directed by a Latino.
Yes.
And I just...
1,000%.
I'm going to lay out a couple of numbers because, and I'm not saying that there's a one-to-one comparison here. My guess, again, I'm not 100% sure, is that in the 100+ movies that we've done, over 20 of them were directed, that we've used over 20 Jewish directors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a bunch of them had multiple films, like the Coen brothers, like Steven Spielberg, like Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
So we've had 20-something Jewish directors that we talked about in the Cine-Files, only one Latino director.
Yeah.
The Jewish population in the United States is about 2.5%-ish. Latino population in the United States is about 16%.
Right.
And out of that, we've had one director. I think that is so... It's just how I felt when we did A League of Their Own. It's shocking and embarrassing, and it says something about the state of American film, which has changed because now going forward, particularly in the last 10 years, there are a lot of great films made by Latino directors. But I mean, that's just so I'm really happy that we're doing this. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Me too.
Do you remember how you came to the film?
Oh yeah, I went to see it at Featherstone Square in Woodbridge, Virginia, by myself. No one else wanted to come with me.
Wow.
I remember seeing the trailer, and of course, remember when I grew up in Virginia at that time, and maybe people who live there now who might listen to us won't understand this. It was like 95% white,
right?
Country white, Southern white, where I lived there in Dale City / Woodbridge, and so a Latino biopic movie about a 50s rocker who had 2 or 3 songs was not going to tear up the theaters there. They didn't even put it at the main theater that you would have at the mall. I had to go to Featherstone Square and see it in the underground theater they had there. And I watched it. I remember watching it in a theater. It was like a 30-seat theater. It was one of these smaller theaters they had there. And I remember just being absolutely blown away by the movie. I remember crying at the end. I remember being romantic about the love story in the movie, and I remember it also speaking to me as a Latino, watching Latinos on a screen directed by a Latino. I remember being conscious of that at 15 years old. This is 85 or 86. This
86,
movie?
I think.
Yeah, 15 years old, watching this movie, going, this is incredible to see a version of myself up on the screen in terms of, I know it's a Mexican story, but Latino still.
Right.
So yeah, I remember that distinctly, and I went back 3 or 4 times to see the movie.
I actually don't remember if I saw it in the theater. I'm not 100% sure. I know that I rented it a bunch and watched it a lot in the 80s. I don't think I've seen it since.
Oh, wow.
So it's been 30 years since I saw this movie.
Wow.
And what's so funny is I remembered so much of it. There are parts of it I didn't remember, but there are certain scenes in this film that I totally 100% remembered.
Yeah.
And what's weird is so Luis Valdez is the director. He's a really fascinating guy, and I want to do some biography on him because sadly, we might not have another chance. There's
Right.
one other film of his that's really interesting, and he hasn't had much of a career. And this is one of those,
Yep.
like, what possible, he makes this hugely successful film, because La Bamba's huge success,
Right.
and then doesn't have much of a career. I can't imagine, John, why that might be. But he was a playwright, actor, and director activist. He's almost exactly the same age as Richie Valens.
Yep.
And he was born to migrant farm workers, second of 20 children. And he began working in the fields at the age of 6. And he loved the theater. So when he was in school, he was doing puppet shows and school plays. He was an amazing student, got a scholarship to San Jose State to study math and physics.
Wow.
This is a brilliant, so migrant working in the fields as a 6-year-old still manages to get that scholarship in math and physics. This is a brilliant, brilliant guy.
Right.
Started writing plays and founded El Teatro Campesino, which I went to school in theater in Berkeley. I studied political science and theater, and El Teatro Campesino was super important there, which is in 1965, he started working with Cesar Chavez in the mission to organize farm workers. And his way of working with him was to do plays.
Yep.
And they did these little plays that they were about 15 minutes long or 30 minutes long to educate the farm workers and educate people about the plight of the farm workers. And they were very political. They were very aggressive. They were very funny. And they were, this idea of agit-prop theater. I don't know if you got that when you were in theater school.
Yeah.
But the idea of, like, we're going to put forward, this is the farm owner, this is the farm worker, and we're going to give you a very funny theatrical exploration of this idea. And they really developed this whole other kind of doing theater that I studied when I was in college. And it was really influential on me. And it's the first time that anyone is doing plays about Chicano culture at the time. And because that was something that was never expressed in the arts for mainstream American culture at all. His first big play was Los Vendido, which is exploring Chicano stereotypes. And again, I am sure it was filled with every expletive. I really think, by the way, I don't know if Spike Lee knew about Luis Valdez, but I think there are things in Do the Right Thing that are sort of that same. There's that sequence in Do the Right Thing where all of the racial epithets are thrown out, and that is and they're all looking right at camera, and that is a very Luis Valdez way of approaching things. The big, huge play is Zoot Suit. Zoot Suit ran at the Taper, which is over here in Los Angeles. In 1978, it ran there for 46 weeks.
Wow.
Almost a whole year, this play took over this theater. Went to New York. Edward James Olmos, of course, is the lead of the play. He wins the Tony in New York. They make the movie in 1981. I saw the movie at like a museum theater.
Yeah.
And Zoot Suit just blew my mind. I think Zoot Suit was hugely influential on me because of the way it was a movie, but was still theatrical.
Yeah.
And movies tend to have to obey the rules of reality that they set, even if you're in a superhero movie. Right. And Zoot Suit goes in and out of musical numbers and real locations, and then clearly theatrical locations, and people talking straight to camera, and this Edward James Olmos character that is just... his performance in that is insane.
Yep.
And then his brother, who he worked with a lot, Daniel Valdez, is the person who was developing. He wanted to do this Richie Valens movie. And it sounds like he was, in a lot of ways, the hero. He was the musical director of the film and pushed and pushed and pushed to make it. And the most important thing in terms of making it that they wanted was, we have to get the Valenzuela family, Richie Valens' family, on board.
Yep.
They have to not approve. They have to. We want them involved. We want them on the set. And it took like a year of visiting them before they finally developed their trust. And Consuelo, who's his mom, and Bob, the real Bob, they were at the auditions, they were at the screen tests, they were on the set, they were involved this whole way. And it sounds like Bob, because he is a complicated character. Yeah. He was totally willing to let his life be examined in a really harsh way.
Yep.
Yeah, he did, which is amazing to me, because Bob is a tough character in this film. Yeah. The most important thing once they got the green light was they got to find Richie Valens. Yeah. National search. If only they had come to your town.
I don't think I would have done it. I don't think I would have passed muster. More his friend that get hit by the falling debris. I looked more like him at the time.
Isa Morales auditioned for Richie Valens. Yeah. And Lou Diamond Phillips auditioned for Bob initially.
Oh, interesting.
And Lou Diamond Phillips, this is a story he told, is that he got called. He didn't know what the audition was. So he lived in Texas, and they say his agent calls him and says, okay, there's an audition. It's a musical. It's going to be at this theater. Go to this Palace Theater or whatever. And he goes, well, what's it about? And they said, oh, it's Rudy Valley. So he thought he was auditioning for a staged musical about Rudy Valley, and only then found out that it was a film about Richie Valens. And this is his first movie.
Yeah.
He's great.
He's incredible in this movie. I know Ben Kingsley's phenomenal in Gandhi, but what Lou Diamond Phillips is able to do with Richie Valens is, in my opinion, is pretty incredible as well for a first movie.
That's a weird comparison, but I'm
biopics,
going to go with you. Sure.
And they're both at around the same age.
Yeah. And right around the same time. So, and one of the producers on this film is Taylor Hackford, who of course went on to be the director of Ray, like another rock biopic, and he's got a huge long career.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he was one of the guys that made this happen.
He also produced When We Were Kings, which was one of our first
ever
episodes of the Cine-Files. So,
yeah. Would you like to get in the movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
We open with the song Sleepwalk, which is one of those recognizable 50s songs. And there's this weird grainy footage, and there's these kids playing basketball and girls playing volleyball. And you're going, what is this? I had no memory of this, by the way, from when I'd seen it. I'd seen it so long ago. I was like, I don't even know what's going on. And there is a midair collision. And Lou Diamond Phillips, Richie Valens, wakes up screaming.
Yeah.
I should say Richard Valenzuela, because that is his name.
Richard Valenzuela, yes.
At this point. And we are off in Northern California. It's 1957, and the families are picking fruit. And Richard is out there picking fruit with his family.
They're migrants.
They're migrant farm workers. And then we do a really hard cut, and the name La Bamba comes up, and we see Bob on the motorcycle driving through those roads. First of all, the original title was Let's Go.
Oh.
Yeah.
For their song, for the hit. His hit,
Which you'll hear they say Let's Go over and over in the movie. And it was a fairly last minute change.
Yeah.
Because Let's Go had been the name of some other movie, so they didn't want to duplicate. And they changed it to La Bamba, and everyone's happy they did.
Yeah.
And Bob, this is Esau Morales. His performance is great.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic in this movie. Because he'd come off Bad Boys with Sean Penn only a couple of years earlier. So this is another, like an announcement of his growing power as an actor. Still working today, by the way.
Yeah. And he rolls up to the tent city, and Richie sees him, and they hug, and it's an emotional moment of, these guys haven't seen each other for a long time.
Yeah. And
we cut to the women who are like processing the apricots and cutting them up and putting them in cans. And Mom, who is, I didn't write down her name, DeSoto.
Rosanna DeSoto.
Rosanna DeSoto.
Yep.
She runs up, and we get instantly she's been gone for a long time, or he's been gone for a long time.
Right.
And we see Rosie.
Yeah, Elizabeth Pena. The late Elizabeth Pena.
Yeah.
Which is a sad.
She's so great.
Oh, yeah. And all the casting across the board is fantastic, because if you're going to establish these relationships that are already established, right? You're not going to go back in time. You've got to cast correctly so that the emotion, the complexity, the layers, the levels are working with every interaction right off the bat.
Yep.
And it works completely. The look between Bob and Rosie, that's going to happen.
Right.
The fact that Richie has his arm around Rosie implies that he has an interest in her.
Yep.
Rosanna DeSoto, Connie, is talking to her smack about Steve, how she punched Steve out. You know that this is a woman not to be messed with.
Right.
So these are all being established in really quick ways.
Well, and it's interesting too. So there was really no love triangle-ish thing with Rosie
in real life. Yeah.
But what they did was they went to the real Rosie and they talked to her about it, and they said, "Look, we're trying. This is why we're doing this for the film." And she said, "Okay, that sounds good." So they really there are certainly
Men
things,
fought over me. I'll take it.
there's certainly things in this film that are not accurate, but they also very clear on the reasons why they did it. We cut to Richie and Bob running up the hill, Richie carrying that guitar, which apparently he really did carry everywhere he went. Shot is great. And he says, "I even sleep with the guitar." And they kind of box a little bit, and then they hit hands. Yeah. And there's this moment where Rich is like, "Did I hurt your hand?" And Bob does a classic roll up that finger.
It's a perfect brother moment.
Yep. And he said, and then there's talking about, he asked him about prison. So we find out Bob's been in prison.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where he says to Richie, "Don't be such a dreamer." And he says, "My dreams are pure rock and roll." And we get little glimpses of their lives making tortillas and the babies and the kids and playing. And this is what Valdez says. He says that this is the Mexican grapes of wrath.
Yeah.
Which it is. And to be clear, this is the world he grew up in.
Yes.
He knows this world, And even though the Jodes and grapes of wrath in the 30s, those people maybe aren't picking the fruit anymore.
Yeah.
There were still people in tents picking the fruit. And
Someone's got to pick it.
And guess what?
Yeah.
Still people picking that
Yep.
fruit.
Absolutely.
Hard, brutal work that they don't get paid very much money for.
Right. But, they only send us the worst kinds, right? That's stupid comment. What's great about this also is...
By the way, it's stupid partially the idea of they send us. There's no they.
There's no they.
Sending people.
Right, that's right. What's really interesting, too, here is that this is such a ballsy way to start a film in the 80s about this story.
Yeah.
You start with migrant worker camps. How many people in the 80s in Virginia, where I was, knew what the hell a migrant worker camp was? So to start this way instead of this rock and roll thing, and you start with this really, dark beginning with a plane crash. All of that.
Yeah.
It's almost Bond-esque in a way because you got an action thing to get you hooked into a situation and then following these characters forward. So I thought Valdez constructs this film so brilliantly. It's more than just a biopic. And I think that's brilliant.
Well, what's interesting too is of course, one of the things I do, particularly in a movie like this, is I get obsessed with sort of, what really happened and what is the truth? Yeah. And there really was this midair plane crash. That was real. It really did kill over his school. He was really gone that day. Really did kill this kid, and he really was haunted by it.
Yes.
This isn't made up for theatrical stuff. This is for real.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah. And Bob wants to take mom and the family out of this place and pulls out a big roll of money.
Yep.
And she only wants honest money, but he convinces her pretty quickly, we got to go.
I think Richie does too. Richie being there kind of embarrasses her a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's later that night. Richie is playing for the farm workers and the kids, and Bob is off with Elizabeth Pena making out.
Ayo.
And he finishes the song, and they have some sex. And then he realizes after that it was her first time, and he says, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she says, "Well, you didn't ask." Yeah. And he's very tender with her. I think it's a fairly sweet scene.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, it also shows you the two sides of Bob. One, he doesn't ask why because he wanted to get his rock,
right.
his rocks off, and but he does kiss her on the shoulder. He does have that moment of connection with her. So it's a complicated relationship.
Well, I mean, Bob is going to be a complicated guy.
Yeah.
In his relationship with Richie, in his relationship with his mom, and definitely in his relationship with Rosie.
Yeah.
It's going to be troubling. Really troubling.
Absolutely.
And later, Richie sees Bob and Rosie together, and there's this look, and Bob kind of goes, "Oh, was there something going on here?"
Complete lie.
Yeah, because it was fairly clear. He had his arm around her.
Once again, what Bob wants, Bob will take.
Yeah. And Richie's response is, I thought you'd changed.
Yeah, which means he'd probably done it before.
Yeah.
To Richie.
Well, all sorts of things. I'm sure whether it was, stealing the thing that the toy Richie wanted or whatever it was. Yeah. I'm sure it was that way. They say goodbyes, and we're leaving the farm workers, and Richie gets in the car with mom to drive away, and Bob's on the motorcycle, and there's Elizabeth Pena.
Yeah.
I think the look acting between Isa Morales and Elizabeth Pena in this moment and the look with her dad is perfect filmmaking.
Right.
It's just a little eyebrow raise and her going, "Are you serious?" And he's going, "Yeah, come along." And she goes, "Okay, I will." And dad going, "Wait, what's happening?" All done with looks. It's great.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Elizabeth Pena is also the voice of the assistant to Syndrome in The Incredibles. So that should blow your mind.
Her voice, she's a great, deep, rich voice.
And she was a woman who lived life, drank the whole nine. Oh, yeah. Elizabeth Pena has a very interesting story.
Ready to rock and roll all the fat top.
It's Southern California, 3 months later. Richie is dancing and listening to some rock and roll music. It's breakfast time. Rosie is there. She's obviously living there.
Yeah.
Richie enters. He kisses his sister. We asked, did Bob come home last night? Nope.
Yeah, nope.
He doesn't spend much time at home, does he?
I can't imagine the circumstance of you just on a whim leave with this dude and you're now living in the house and that dude's not there and you're just realizing what you just got into.
Well, the desperation of leaving that migrant farm camp for a chance at something else.
The dude in the leather jacket with the motorcycle and
the bad boy
and the big roll of money, What a shock. It didn't work out. And of course, then she looks at Richie is like, well, you spend a lot of time here. And he goes, yeah, well, I'm me.
Yeah, well, I'm me, and you chose poorly.
Richie is the sweetest. I mean, he is just almost a perfect person.
He is, but he does have a spine of steel.
Oh, yeah.
To go for what he wants.
Absolutely. He knows what he wants.
Yes.
And we're just going to see something else he wants because we end up at school and in walks Donna.
Donna.
Damn it. I didn't write down her name.
Really? Danielle Von something. Here, I'll look it up while you talk about it.
Here's what's interesting. You want to know who else auditioned for the role of Donna?
Ooh, who?
Laura Dern and Helen Hunt.
Oh, I think they made the right choice.
I don't.
You don't think so?
I don't love her. I don't love her.
You're insane.
Well, and I love Laura Dern. And
Danielle Von Zernick. Yeah.
Danielle Von Zernick.
Yeah, but Laura Dern would have brought a. She would have brought a more worldly point of view. Who's the other one?
Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt. No.
I don't know Helen Hunt in the mid 80s.
Too mousy. Donna is wide open, and that's what makes her interesting.
It works great. I'm not saying, but I particularly Laura Dern, she's just a fascinating person who I always like. Even in movies that I don't like, I like her.
Yeah, well, I don't deny her talent.
Yeah. And there's a moment with him and his friend, and he goes, no, I kind of saw what I wanted. He's like, you're just way out of your class.
Yeah.
Concentrate on the audition. And class is out, and we see those great 50s. We see greasers, and we see, the girls in the skirts and all the outfits. Yeah. And he goes up to Donna, and you're right. He is spine of steel.
Yep.
They call me High Tone. You?
Donna.
You mind if I walk with you, Donna?
Sure.
And there's a very, very sweet scene. And then the bell rings and she goes into class and he runs off jumping happy, still carrying that guitar.
Yep.
It's cute.
Young love, man.
We're at home. There's this dude working on an engine who's like a big kind of biker kind of guy. And Bob comes up and says, want to buy a kilo? And reveals a whole bunch of weed around his waist. So we know he's dealing some drugs.
Again, the 80s, weed. This is incredible to show this so brazenly.
Well, and to not condemn him as just the bad guy.
Yep.
I mean, we're going to get into some stuff with Bob.
Sure.
Richie's off. He's walking with his guitar now. He's got a little amp, and there is a literal garage band. And these are the Silhouettes, although not the famous Silhouettes. And we meet the leader of the band, who's the saxophone guy. And he's doing his audition, and they make fun of his little amp.
He even plays a tenor sax, not an alto sax, which makes him even less of a cool dude.
I had no rankings in my mind.
There is. Oh my God! I played sax. There are rankings.
Did you play a tenor sax?
I played the baritone sax. That's how terrible I was. So you're lower class with the baritone.
But you have that
sax.
deep sound, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then you also have to lug this massive instrument everywhere.
Fair.
I hated band Fridays, but yeah, you have the baritone sax, the tenor sax, and the alto. The alto is the cool sax. The tenor sax is the kind of like jerky sax, and the baritone sax is the sad sax. Yep, this is every fucking day. This asshole upstairs.
Richie just starts playing. The song is gonna rock it up, and it's instant.
He's killing it.
Killing it.
Well, it's Saturday night and I just got paid. A fool about my money, don't try to save. My heart says go, go, have a time, cause it's Saturday night and I'm feeling fine. Gonna rock it up.
Drummers start drumming. Right. The piano player jumps in, and the great reluctant look from the leader with the saxophone who goes, I guess I'll join in. Lou Diamond Phillips, he's great. Yeah. Never played guitar before. He had 3 lessons a day every day for months in order to do this. And of course, we should say that this is not him singing.
Nope.
This is all Los Lobos.
Yep.
I think I just heard of Los Lobos a little bit before this movie came out.
I think so as well. For me too. What did you hear them do?
I don't remember. I knew that I knew who they were when the movie came out because I remember going, oh, it's Los Lobos. Cool.
Right.
But I don't know if I knew that much of them.
They had a song called Will the Wolf Survive that I had heard on the Promised Land soundtrack, which is a quiet little film from the 80s with Kiefer Sutherland, Tracy Pollan, Jason Gedrick, and Meg Ryan. And it's all about these people coming back to a small town after they graduated high school, and this terrible tragedy happens between Kiefer Sutherland and Jason Gedrick. Fantastic little film. If you haven't seen it, great score. James Newton Howard does the score as well. It's a great little 80s film.
And we should say, speaking of score, the score for this movie is by the great Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
Have I told you about the one time I heard Santana live?
No.
Okay, this is a totally bizarre story.
Okay.
This is the weirdest quote-unquote concert / memorial service in history. So Bill Graham, the great concert promoter in San Francisco, died. And Bill Graham was Jewish and was a Holocaust survivor. And his biography or autobiography had been about both his music stuff, but also surviving the Holocaust. So they had the memorial at my temple, at Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco.
Wow.
And this is the weirdest event. And, you know, my mom and my family was very involved with the temple. And so we got tickets to the memorial service at my temple. And it was readings from his autobiography by Danny Glover.
Oh,
So Danny Glover is up there reading.
who's not Jewish?
Not Jewish. Well, most of these people weren't Jewish.
Sammy Davis is Jewish, you know.
Carlos Santana playing guitar.
Yeah.
Grace Slick sang. I feel like there was another male singer, now I can't remember who it was, who performed. And then all these speakers from San Francisco, the world of San Francisco, because Bill Graham is so important in San Francisco, because he's, you know, the Fillmore and all that stuff. So all these sort of 60s and 70s icons of music were there at my temple. And then we went to the little, like, you know, after reception where there's food and stuff, wandering around looking at, there are all these famous people. It was probably my first being close to, like, famous people.
Wow.
And man, being in my temple where I had been to Yom Kippur services and, you know, big, huge services, and hearing Carlos Santana wail on the electric guitar was the coolest. It's a huge temple, by the way, huge dome ceiling, seats, you know, probably 4,000 or 5,000 people. I mean, it's a really big, maybe it's not, maybe 2,000. Wow. Really big. It was like, it was a crazy memorial service concert in my temple. Yeah. Anyway. We're back with Bob and his buddies and Rosie, and we're high, and everyone's laughing. Everyone's having a great time. It seems like everyone's getting along really well, except
Rosie.
Rosie's not digging it. Nope. Tries to get her to smoke some weed. She doesn't want any of it.
Baby, I need some action tonight.
They kind of bicker. She goes off into her room, and they live in like a trailer or something. And Bob, you know, is doing the babe, I was only joking. And then she won't open the door. And now we have that great situation where a dude's having a fight with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And the other two people are there. And the woman, whose name I don't know, says to the guy, who might be Max or something, says, hey, let's go. And he goes, where?
Yeah. Great little moment.
And finally she gets him to come out. And this is where Bob, you know, he's begging her to open the door. And then he's yelling. And then he's banging and...
Open the goddamn door!
Leave me alone! Just go away. Go and get yourself drunk for all I care.
Okay, bitch. You asked for it. You asked for it.
Kicks the door open.
Kicks the door open with the lines, okay, you asked for it, and takes off his shirt. Yeah.
In essence, he rapes her.
I don't think there's an essence, you know. You know.
We don't see it, but
We
it's
don't see it.
implied. It's certainly implied.
She doesn't want it.
Right.
And he does do it.
Yeah.
So
it's certainly implied.
yeah. And of course, at this moment that Richie comes home, and he hears Rosie crying through the window and kind of asks if you're okay. And then he sees the motorcycle and then realizes Bob's there.
And then Bob goes, what do you want, Richie?
Yeah.
It's not your business.
Yeah. He goes inside, finds his mom, who's asleep, and wakes her up and says, hey, I got into the audition. And now we go back to Bob and Rosie.
And this is not like I expected. You are not like I expected. I don't have a life here. You're always gone. Do you think I like being here alone?
And his response is, stop being such a drag. He goes to get a drink. He pours himself a shot. And she says,
I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
and there's a great pause. I think there's great holding a shot acting.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't respond. He drinks his shot. And she goes,
Well, aren't you going to say anything?
Well, what's there to say? It's not my first or my last.
It's the casualness, which is
yeah. Yeah.
It's not my first. Won't be my last. It's just complete dismissal of her.
Well, I don't know if it's just machismo, although that's certainly part of it, but like his need to maintain the image of who he thinks he is.
Yeah.
Over what is a very sensitive dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's the battle within him, I think, is I have to maintain dominance. I have to get the things that I want.
Right.
I'm being disrespected and I have to stand up for it. But he loves his brother. He loves his family. He wants love. I think from Rosie. I don't know that he's capable of the kind of love that he wants to have maybe
Right,
with her.
right.
You know, and maybe this relationship to his father.
But it also comes from right, exactly, because his father isn't who everyone talks about. Steve, that is not his dad. That's his stepdad.
Yeah.
His real dad is someone else who rarely gets referenced in the movie. So he feels a certain level of like inadequacy the whole time.
Well, and we'll get into this later.
Lesser than.
He didn't know that dad wasn't his dad.
Right.
For a while.
Exactly.
And then only found out later
Exactly.
that he had another dad. By the way, they shot a scene with his real dad.
Oh.
And you want to know who played him?
Who? Almost?
Luis Valdez.
Oh.
And Luis Valdez cut himself out of the movie.
Damn.
That's real director.
That's
right
real
there, by the way. That's what it is. You go, my scene is not good. It should be out of the movie.
If only Tarantino would listen to that.
Oh my God. Serious. I will bet you cash money Luis Valdez is a way better actor than Tarantino.
Yes, I agree.
And of course, the fight is going on. She throws stuff at him. There's yelling, and who hears it? Mom and Richie.
Right.
Richie, don't. It's none of your business.
That's the thing in the culture, man. It's true. It's true. Their relationship is their relationship. Don't get involved.
Yeah.
It's true.
Richie and Donna are together. And they're walking through her neighborhood, and he kind of describes her as rich. And she's like, I'm not rich.
I love that moment. Once again, this is remember 86. Valdez is making a very offhand social class commentary. She's saying we're not rich because in the white point of view,
She's not.
she's not. In the Latino migrant worker point of view, she is. But
Yeah.
objectively, they are well off.
Well, this is wherever you are, people look at the next level and go, oh, no, that's rich.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like the people who are struggling to be able to buy a car look at the people that can easily buy a car with a huge loan payment and go, those people are rich. The people with the loan payment go, oh, man, if only I could buy that car with cash. And then the people who buy with a car with cash and they go like, well, I can't buy a house. You know, and then they're the people who could buy a house with cash. And where you really get it, and I think this is just undeniable, you're rich, is the people that go, I feel like buying a second house or a third house or a plane. When you get to like, I'm going to buy myself a plane.
A G5.
And you're still going, well, we're not really rich because I couldn't get the Learjet. You know, like, no, you're rich.
Right.
But it's wherever you are, just because, you know, we're just used to the water we swim in.
Exactly.
And I love his just like,
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Without saying a word.
And then they get towards her house and dad has come home.
Of course.
This establishes, and I forget the name of the actor. He's been tons of stuff. But this is like, again, it's very efficient filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
You get it right away.
Who's the big kid?
Just a friend.
What is he, Italian?
And her look is great. It's the first gig. Richie's super excited because he's probably going to play, and mom is out there in the car with the kids, and Bob is there, and that sax guy is playing.
No, terrible.
Charlena, don't you know I love you? Whoa, 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 whoa.
He didn't know he was going to sing.
Oh, really?
There was actually a lip sync track
Horrible.
that he was, and they said, well, why don't you just sing? And he's not really a singer. Sounds like he's not that happy.
Oh, I'm sure he isn't.
But he is fantastically
Giving it all he
horrible.
can.
It is so painful. And of course, Richie in the background being a good soldier, you know.
Chewing that bubble gum.
Charlena.
I love you.
And then it's the end of the gig and Richie didn't get to play. And the kids are in the car going, Mommy, why isn't Richie playing? And he walks out, gets in the car with mom, and she is pissed.
They don't know who the hell they're dealing with. My granddaddy was a full-blooded Yaqui Indian.
Now, I don't know what that means exactly.
It means don't fuck with her.
It means done. She peels out.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the explosion of the planes.
Yeah.
And we're back to this, and kids, we're looking at this kid as debris falls, and then he wakes up, and there's Bob, drunk.
I'm sorry, carnal. I didn't mean to wake you up, but I just need a place to crash, man.
And gets into bed, and there's some jokes about hope he wasn't mistaken for Rosie.
Yeah.
And he finds a picture of his dad, which is Steve, who was in World War One. That's not the real picture of Steve, by the way.
Okay.
And now Bob has diagnosed what Richie's problem is. Sperm pressure. Richie needs to get laid.
Yeah, man.
We're back at school. He's talking to Donna, and that she wanted to go to the gig, but Dad wouldn't let her out. And now we get to this bar, and Bob has kind of brought Richie in a motorcycle, and Mom is inside talking to the bartender saying, you got to let my kid play. He's like, no, you can't come in. He's underage.
He's going to be singing, not drinking.
Yeah. Rock and roll to a bunch of cowboys. Come on.
My husband Steve drank himself to death in here, Howard. Don't you think you owe his boy something?
This is one weird inaccuracy I don't quite understand why they did.
Oh.
Steve didn't drink himself to death.
Oh.
Wasn't an alcoholic as far as I can tell. And the way he actually died was he was a World War I soldier, and he had been hit with mustard gas. And he suffered the effects of mustard gas with lung disease for his 30 years after.
Wow.
That's what caused his death. Not according to what I was able to find.
Okay.
But it does talk the bartender into letting him in. He comes in, he sets up. Bob sits down to the drums. You're like, oh my God, how's this going to go?
Yeah.
Richie goes, howdy. Not a good response.
Right.
He says, I got a song from, is it Lubbock, Texas?
Lubbock, Texas.
And he goes into Oh Boy.
Yeah, Buddy Holly's Oh Boy.
1, 2, 3, 4. All my love, all of my kissing. You don't know what you've been missing, oh boy.
I love Buddy Holly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This was the music I listened to, by the way. I really, in the 80s, was when I started listening to the oldie station.
yeah.
And I listened to 50s and 60s way more than I listened to modern music, which I guess just to show that I really haven't changed. I'm still the same, like, not into the popular thing as I was back then. Bob's drumming is so beautifully terrible.
Yeah.
You're with me, oh boy. The world seems that you were meant for me.
And Issa is like, no, I'm a better drummer than this. Because he's just too fast. He's just off the beat. He throws in an oh boy, but the crowd loves it.
Yeah.
Start dancing. Yeah. And there's a great cut directly from oh boy to Bob playing the rhythm on a beer can.
Yeah. Everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy. Next day in the house. And he, we're talking about making money, and Richie's like, no, I just want to make my music.
Yeah.
He's such a pure character.
Isn't he, though?
Yeah. And Mom's on board now. She said, you need a big place, you need exposure. She's going to be his manager. She says she can get the American Legion Hall because Steve was a World War I veteran. And then we kind of poke at Bob a little bit.
What, Bob? You don't think I can do it? Just for that, you can be my flunky.
Oh, Mom, thanks, but no thanks. Anybody but Bob, okay?
Yeah, this seems to come out of nowhere.
Anyone but Bob to help me.
Right. It seems to come out of nowhere.
Well, I mean,
unless Richie still, and maybe this is why they threw in the trilogy, the triangle thing, because like he's still maybe smarting about the fact that Bob.
Well, and Bob is clearly a drunk, and Bob is now in his room, and Bob, had the whole conflict with Rosie.
Right.
I think it's more about that.
But Bob was also there drumming along to help him.
100%.
And drove him to the gig.
Well,
so
this is
a bit of perspective loss here.
Well, and this is also where your job is making the movie is to get the characters where you want, and the arc with Bob is he feels less than his brother, and we want to keep poking that. Plus, because that's our conflict.
Bob Esai Morales is darker skinned. That factors in as well. Lou Diamond is half and half because Steve and Connie, that's a half and half situation. So he's lighter, and so there's this natural jealousy that goes there. Of
course, I never thought about that, and of course you're right, but that's just coming from my background.
Yeah,
it's shit I don't see.
Well, it's something I brought up on Collider Live last week, and I'll make it just a real quick tangent. It's like the new picture they issued from West Side Story. For those Steven Spielberg, those are the most white-looking Latinos you could find.
Really?
In their actual shots, their actual headshots, they're darker skinned. But for that picture, they lightened them up. And I was fucking pissed. And the two darker skinned Latino actors are looking away from the camera. And so it's little subtle shit like that goes on, and people don't catch, and white people go, what are you making a big deal about? This is something you don't understand or you don't know because you don't have this experience.
Right.
And getting it highlighted to you is not a place for you to go, oh, that's stupid. It's a place for you to go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Let me look at it again. This is what I had to push back at a number of people who were like, you were just making, that's something you don't understand. Take a look at it. Spike Lee did a whole film called School Days about lighter skin versus darker skin black people. It also exists in the Latino community.
It's funny. I never thought about it in the Latino community. I mean, like I knew about it in the African American community, largely from that film. And
right. From School Days, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. This is why, look, I basically really hope that West Side Story is good. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't understand why Steven Spielberg would do it.
Me too. Just because it's a passion project doesn't mean you get to do it or you should do it.
Like what?
And why isn't a Latino involved as a co-director with you on this?
I don't understand.
Bullshit.
First of all, it's a great film. You know, so remaking a great film is always a weird thing.
That won 11 Oscars.
Yeah, and then it's like, and you know, of course, it is a great film that was made by a bunch of Jews.
Sure.
You know, 3 Jewish gay men created the show. You know, and so.
But I trust Jewish gay men. Go ahead.
But still, today to go, and you should be. If I were doing a film like that, I would be so careful.
Yeah,
and make sure that I had people around me to tell me the things I'm missing, like you know what I mean? Like that's like, again, and Spielberg, who's a genius, knows that film is a collaborative process. Like he wouldn't have done Schindler's List without talking to a bunch of Holocaust survivors.
Imagine a Latino person doing a Schindler's List.
Well,
imagine that reaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the frustrating part of this situation. People think, because they're white, they can do everything.
Right.
But a Latino goes to tell a white story. Let's see it happen.
And this is the thing is like, well, this is where did I start on this film is all the Jewish directors we've had.
Right.
Now, I'm not unhappy that we did, you know, a Coen Brothers movie or Rob Reiner or Steven Spielberg. I think these are great directors.
Right.
But it's the absence of the other that is the problem. You know, it's like I don't want to stop a great director from directing because he's white or Jewish. Right. But to say that these particular people are able to tell the stories of everybody and yet not have these other voices is a really problematic situation.
In 2019.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. But regardless, we're going off to the American Legion and Bob is pissed off.
Yeah.
And we're at the American Legion and up comes the Silhouettes, the band, and our lead guy goes,
You're dreaming, Valenzuela. They wouldn't even let us into this place.
No, man. I told you. My mom, she set it all up.
Since when is your mama running this band?
Nope, we're not doing it. We're out.
Yeah. Your mom doesn't make decisions for the Silhouettes.
He walks to the car. The rest of the band, they stay with Richie.
Are you guys coming or what?
I guess it's what?
That's a great line. Interestingly enough, so the rebellion in the band didn't happen. But what is interesting is that this was a multicultural band. There's a Japanese guy, an African-American guy, an Italian guy. That was what was in this band, which is kind of cool.
Well, like California.
Yeah. Well, I'm a California boy.
Yep.
Like it is funny the things about me, and I'm a Northern California boy that are different. You know, the different ways of looking at it from growing up in California. Anyway.
Yeah.
And Mom's painting some signs for the gig. Bob looks at him like, that looks terrible. Wrong thing to say because now, of course, he's painting the signs for the gig. And then Bob's working it.
Yeah.
He puts up those signs. He's got his guys doing it. Mom is on a speaker truck. I don't know how they got this, advertising the gig. We're decorating the hall. You know, Richie's looking good. Rosie says he looks handsome.
The girls are gonna go crazy over you.
There's only one girl I care about.
Who's that?
Nobody would know.
Is this meant to be set up to be a particular Rosie moment in terms of making her jealous, like she is regretting her choice? I can't tell watching the scene.
I don't know. Maybe there's an element of that, but it doesn't seem predominant. So I don't know if it's there, but I think it's more to push forward the fact that he's in love with Donna. Like he's very much in love with Donna.
100%. Yeah. And it's treated, and we don't know. I mean, by the way, Donna, they went and talked to Donna. She's an advisor on this movie too.
That's great.
Yeah. No, they really did the real, like, we want to talk to these people. He goes up to Mom, and Mom's like, we got to pack this place because I spent rent money on this. And the thing, we got to say, like, rent money for this family, that's next month, you're out on the street.
One of these days, I'm gonna buy you the house of your dreams, Mom. That's a promise.
And now we're at the gig. People are dancing, and Donna's there, and people are screaming, and in walks Joey Pants, Joe Pantaleone.
Joey Pants.
He's great.
Yeah. This was my first exposure to him.
I think mine's Risky Business.
Yeah. See, I didn't see Risky Business.
Oh, I totally saw that in the theater. Yeah. And there's no sign of Bob, and all the kids are cheering, and he blows a kiss to Donna.
Here's a little number. Here's a little number for the criminal element here tonight.
I was walking down the street minding my own affair, when two policemen grabbed me unaware. They says, your name Henry, and I says, why, sure. They says, you're the boy I've been looking for.
It's my favorite song on the soundtrack.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
I've yet to find it at a karaoke bar. I wish. I fucking love this song.
Yeah, and as he's singing this song, Bob shows up, drunk.
Yep.
Truly obnoxious, beautiful, obnoxious acting.
Yep.
Yeah, pushes, gets through, starts a fight, and of course, Richie watching while performing, and then jumps off the stage, and the crowd goes nuts
because someone punched his brother.
Yeah.
No matter what the problems are, it's family's family.
Family's family. Yeah. Yep. And it's later. Everything's a wreck. Mom's yelling at Bob. And there's this interesting moment. She says, "How could you do this to Richie?"
To Richie? I did this to me, okay?
So before we go to the next line, what does that mean? I did this to me.
I'm the one who made an ass of myself. I'm self-aware enough to know that I gave in to my drunkenness again and ruined something for my family.
Yeah.
I did this to me.
Well, and there's sort of a self-destructive, a consciously self-destructive part of this.
Yeah.
I know this isn't good for me in any way.
Right.
There's nothing good that's going to come out of it for me. And I did it almost to hurt myself.
Right, because I can't figure out what's going on with me.
It's my Bob, always thinking of others first.
Which is another weird line.
It's a terrible dig.
Yeah.
Like it's a horrible dig at
Well, because he really just said, no, I did this.
Right.
He's acknowledging something on some level.
Well, she does have a bias towards Richie.
I think she does too.
Yeah.
Well, and then this is what we can't. The weird thing about being a parent now is that you can never go back and do a different choice.
Right.
And you don't know. So it's like, let's say the kid is repeatedly misbehaving. And so you go, is the kid repeatedly misbehaving because I'm showing favoritism to the other kid? Mm-hmm. Or am I showing favoritism to the other kid because the kid is previously is misbehaving?
Yeah.
Is that you can't go to cause and effect. If Bob has been fucking up forever, it makes sense. And Richie's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes sense why she's doing favoritism. But did she show favoritism before Bob started fucking up, or to what degree? And we don't know.
Right.
Shut your goddamn mouth!
Hey, man, don't take it out on Rosie, okay?
Richie, you don't understand, man. You don't understand a goddamn thing! What do you think? The whole fucking world revolves around you?
And next day, Richie's walking home, and Donna picks him up in a beautiful red convertible, which apparently is exactly the car that she had.
Oh, wow.
And she asks, "Is this where you live?"
No. I live down the street.
Hop in, I'll take you home.
Why don't we just go for a drive, huh?
And she says, "Okay, you drive." And now he's driving. And of course, this is on a camera truck, so they're on a trailer. And what they had to do, because they did not have a lot of money, was they couldn't just put all period cars everywhere. So there are times where they've blocked cars, or they've covered them with things, or they're just cutting in such a way so you're not actually seeing that this is filmed in the 80s. And it's a really sweet scene.
How come you've been avoiding me? Was it that blowout at the dance?
Don't be silly.
Then what's the problem?
My dad?
Does it mean I can't ask you out on a regular date?
Why don't you ask me?
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
We're at Columbia Pictures, I think, and in comes a garbage truck, and there's Bob, and they're dealing with all the props, and Bob finds some old Woody Woodpecker stills, which actually what Bob found were Disney stills, but they didn't have the rights to them, so they had to switch. And a pink Cadillac pulls up to the house, and out comes Joey Pants, and he knocks on the door, tries to speak Spanish. He's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Goes out back, finds Richie again, asks about Spanish, and Richie says, "I don't speak Spanish." Yeah. And Mom says, "Well, we speak business." I like that a lot.
Of course.
I went and looked up. He did speak Spanish. He
Yeah.
didn't speak a lot.
Yeah.
He spoke. He could kind of get along in Spanish, which is a really interesting choice in terms of, particularly if he was working as a farm worker all around Spanish speakers. Did the parents consciously stop him from speaking Spanish?
Well, here's what I'll tell you my experience, and maybe there's a part of it. My parents didn't want me to grow up with any Spanish accent. Both my parents have a Spanish accent because they were born in Bolivia. Very thick Spanish accent, by the way. So my parents sat me down in front of a television since I was a baby to learn how to speak English without an accent, so that I would imitate what I heard on the television.
Right.
So school, and the television. They didn't even want me to have even like a Chicano, any kind of version of a Chicano accent or a Bolivian version of a Chicano accent. They didn't want me to have any of that with my English. So they were fervent about it. But there are also people, sons, daughters, whatever, who don't want to learn Spanish because they want to be so American that they don't want to speak the Spanish language. Later, they come back to it and learn it again. Right. But I was taught both growing up, so I can speak both. But some people don't. And so, like, my sister rarely speaks it. But Richie, it makes sense. Richie's American rock star. Well, he doesn't want to necessarily speak.
But it had to be the choice of the parents. You know what I mean?
It's not always a choice of parents. Sometimes the kids rebel and don't want to learn.
Well, and it's interesting too because dad is Mexican, I assume. His last name's Valenzuela. But his name's Steve. They don't call him Esteban.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's Steve.
Right.
And the kids' names are Richard and Bob.
Yeah.
Not Ricardo.
Yeah.
Richard. You know, and so I think there's a clear choice to assimilate.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why. So my family, you know, I was a Jew who grew up celebrating Christmas. And the reason is because in the 1880s and 90s, those generations of Jews, Reformed Jews coming from Germany, Prussia, and those places went, we want to be Americans.
Yeah.
There was no Yiddish in my home. They went, no, we want to be completely passing. They're still Jewish, still went to temple, but being very American. And I have no judgment on either way.
Yeah.
You know, like lots of communities come to this country and go, we want to maintain our Italianness or our Irishness or our Vietnameseness and have our community and eat our kinds of food. And there are other groups that say, going to be full American. And either way is great. But this sounds like one where they went, we're American.
Yeah.
Richard and Bob.
Hi, Richie. Mind if I call you Richie? My name is Bob Keane. I'm president of Delphi Records in Hollywood. I really dig your music, and I'd like to record it.
When they go off to his little studio and he sits down to that reel-to-reel, and the first thing that comes up is, I need my band.
Yeah.
And man, he hits him really quickly.
Wait a minute, man. Look, I understand about friendship, but I'm being honest here. Not everybody in this world gets a shot at the brass ring. You're going to have to ask yourself what's more important, your friends or your music.
And there's a nod, and we think he's going to say music. But what does he say instead?
My family.
My family.
My family.
Yeah.
That's a great little bit. And then we're recording. He's singing You're Mine. And by the way, they have the implication that Joey Pants is playing guitar. But it's totally blocked. He didn't know any guitar. And he's just kind of moving like as if he is.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of in a montage, which is Bob applies to this art contest with $500 in prizes. Yeah. And Richie and Donna are walking arm in arm in school. And then Bob gets a letter and calls Rosie. And Richie finishes the song. It's a really nice performance of Los Lobos and lip syncing and Lou Diamond Phillips. It's very well done.
Eternity.
Great look from Joey Pants, who says,
fantastic.
And again, where do we go to? The basketball dream and the planes and the wreckage. And now we see like a body in the wreckage and Richie screams. And we finally hear what this is because he's telling Donna
at the diner.
That he wasn't there when it happened, but in his dream he is. And his best friend got killed, which is true, crushed by a falling plane. I mean, the odds of a midair collision over a school, but it really did happen. And there are people that they talked to when they were filming, because they actually filmed at what had been San Fernando Middle School and was now San Fernando High School or something like that.
Right.
There were people there that had been there that day when this crash happened that they talked to about what had happened that day.
Wow.
And he was at his grandfather's funeral, and that the funeral, essentially saved his life. And his mom says that it saved him for something special. And you know what that is? Rock and roll. Yeah.
Stars don't fall out of the sky.
Stars don't fall out of the sky.
But they do. But anyway, go
ahead. And now we got Bob arguing about hauling garbage and whether or not he gets respect. And he's getting the bunny drunk.
Yeah, with tequila.
That was Isai's choice.
But you can't fault Rosie here too. And the film kind of semi tries to fault her for not understanding Bob's dreams. The truth is, Bob has been such a jerk for so long. It's not like all of a sudden you go, oh, I'll take another chance with this guy. No.
Well, and he's not doing. Richie literally carries a guitar everywhere he goes.
Right.
I mean, what's Bob doing?
Right.
I think he really did have dreams, and he really did want to be this kind of artist. People want to believe that, Bob went on to be some artist at Disney or something. It didn't happen. Bob went back to drugs, and I think Bob ended up being a drug counselor, though. He did get sober
that's great.
and ended up being a drug counselor. And there's footage I've seen of him that's in some of the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Nice.
Man, he's still Bob. He's leather jacket. He's got white spiked hair. He's got tattoos, and he's hanging out on set.
Hey, man.
It's Bob, man.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Richie, and they're talking about whether or not he's, moving in with him. And
It's cool if you move in with me, man. But what about when the baby comes? Shouldn't you be with Rosie?
Hey, old man wasn't around when I was born. Why should I be?
oh, Bob. And Mom comes out and says that he's going to be recording at a real studio on Wednesday. And he runs and picks up Mom in a big hug, and Bob's reaction is great.
Yeah.
Because you can see the left outness, and Richie throws it to his brother.
Richie tries to include him, yeah.
Yeah, Bob has great news too, which he does.
Yes.
He won this contest, and he gets $500. And of course, Mom's reaction is, oh, that's going to be great for the baby. Because she's thinking about the money and the baby.
Right.
And Bob's like, what about me? No, I won this contest. There's art lessons, and I get a drawing table. And this is where she does. She grabs them both and says, all our dreams are going to come true. Yeah. The recording for Let's Go.
Well, now, baby, I love you so now. And I will never, never let you go now. Come on, little baby, let's go bye-bye.
Cut, Richie.
This is one of the scenes I so remembered.
Yeah.
I just made such a strong, it's so well done, it's so well edited, of the repetition of trying to get this song right.
Well, I'll kiss you once and I'll kiss you once again.
Cut. Don't rewrite the song. Just do it the way you did the first time, okay?
And one of the things is that he improvises on the lyrics, which you can't do.
Yeah, right.
You got to lock him down.
Well, let's go, little sweetheart.
And then there's this one where they go, cut. That time was us. Which is so true in the studio.
Yep.
And you could see Lou Diamond Phillips is great at getting frustrated.
Yeah.
They had very little time to shoot. This was not a big budget movie at all.
What a surprise.
And they had like a day to shoot this whole montage, which meant that Los Lobos had to record a whole bunch of different versions of the song. He had to memorize all these different versions of the song, and he had to perform them, and then he had to. And so it wasn't acting that he's getting frustrated. At one point, Lou Diamond Phillips threw a chair while he was doing this scene because he just was it was so hard to do all of it. And this is a guy who hadn't played guitar before. I mean, this is tough.
Right.
And they kind of stop and say, listen, you have to do it the exact same way every time because it has to be clean. You can't improvise on the lyrics, and we got to get a perfect version that we can cut together. And there's this one moment where he says, this isn't Mexico.
Yeah.
It gets a big reaction from Richie.
Who said it was?
I live there. I understand the tradition of the song. They're always changing the lyrics.
Look, man, I've never even been to Mexico. My music is my music, huh?
You tell him, carnal.
Of course, Bob's there too, and Bob is on Team Richie. And we kind of get into how many more takes is this going to take? And it's like, well,
it takes what it takes.
It takes what it takes.
Yeah. That was good. That was good. Same energy. Just try it again.
Come on, let's go and do it again, again and again and again, and then again and again and again. Come on, let's go and do it again.
We finally get to the end of the song, and at this point, it seems like he's grown. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he's gone through being frustrated to be like, okay, this is what the gig is.
Yep.
Should I get a new roll of tape?
No. I think we got him. I can cut something here.
Nice work, 60 takes. And Bob's response is, I didn't hear a difference in one. Joey has one more thing to discuss.
Yeah.
The name.
From now on, it's Richie with a T. R-I-T-C-H-I-E. I got a new last name for you, too. Valens with an S. Richie Valens.
Which Bob doesn't take too kindly to.
That's for shit, man. I mean, Valenzuela was our dad's last name. You can't just cut it in half.
Richie also doesn't like it initially, but then eventually comes around on it, says, trust me. And I like what he says, the button on the scene.
Look, it could have been worse. You could have been Ricky's Whaler.
By the way, our good friend Dave Rapp, who's been on the show, says he might be related to Ricardo Valenzuela.
Whoa.
He has Valenzuelas in his family.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's one big clan going back to Oaxaca or Jalisco, I forget which province.
Okay.
And that he says Fernando Valenzuela is also connected to the same family.
Wouldn't be surprised.
So shout out to our friend Dave Rapp / Valenzuela. Richie calls Donna's house. Father answers.
Is Donna in?
No, Donna's not in. This is her father. Can I help you?
Donna ends up outside the door crying, and Mom comes out, and we hear Dad yelling about jungle music from inside.
Jungle music.
I hate Dad when he acts like that. I just hate him.
Apparently, Donna's parents got divorced shortly after this, by the way.
What a surprise.
Yeah. Rick Dees at the radio station. I had no idea who Rick Dees was when I saw this movie.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a real disc jockey.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the thing they said was it was great having him on because A, he loved doing it, but then also is that every single morning on his radio show, when the movie, he talked about La Bamba.
Yep.
So it's free advertising.
Richie's got a song headed for the top of the charts with a bullet. Richie Valens, come on, let's go!
And he asked, Valens, what kind of name is that? French?
How'd you know?
And we're at, you know what we don't have in this movie, which surprises me. And it's interesting because this movie, there are lots of music biopics. This movie does not follow them.
Wow.
You know, it's like the classic structure of the musical biopic is the kid who has the dream, who works really hard to get the dream, who gets the dream, and then goes, because of his personal problems that he brought with him, goes into excess, drug addiction, problems, and then eventually redemption.
Right.
Like I just saw Rocket Man.
Yeah. Great movie.
Yeah. And it follows that structure. Well, this movie doesn't have that structure because the dude died at 17. But one of the scenes that's in almost every one of these movies that isn't in this one is the first time you hear your song on the radio.
Yeah, no.
Because we don't have Richie. In fact, it seems that when Mom's listening to it in the diner, it's not the first time it's played. It's played a bunch. And now Rick Dees is interviewing Richie, and there's some deal where if they guess who he is, he's going to show up to deliver pizzas, and we see him do that, and it's mobbed by girls.
Handing out records.
Yeah, tries to call for Donna. She's not there. Knocks on Donna's door. Mom answers, and out comes Donna, and they go for a walk. And there's sort of this idea, like, are you seeing other guys? And at first she goes, yeah.
They don't go for a walk. They stand at the doorstep and have it.
Oh, they have it?
Yeah. They have it back and forth there at the doorstep.
I can't just tag along to all your appearances. I mean, all those other girls.
I don't care about those other girls.
What am I supposed to do? You don't have time for me right now.
You want to break it off?
I don't know what I want anymore.
And it's like, oh, I'll see you around.
Yeah. And she goes, Richie, wait. And he walks right off.
It's the middle of the night. Bob's trying to sleep, and Richie is playing, and we hear the very first strains of Donna.
Yeah.
It's late at night. Biker and Bob roll up to Richie at a phone booth, playing Donna into the phone.
Oh, Donna. Oh, Donna.
And tells her, like, that's your song.
Yeah.
And I love Donna. Donna's a great song.
Yeah. It's a good song.
And they hang up the phone, and Bob has finally, like, I know what your problem is. We have to go take care of something. And I believe the line is, get you some tail, man.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, man.
But that's not what is said in the actual movie. He said a different word.
Oh, yeah, right.
That had to do with a cat.
Hey-o.
But they did not put that in the film. And we end up in Tijuana, which is shot, I forget where they said it was shot. It's not shot in Tijuana.
No.
They argue a little bit about the name. And then we end up in a house of ill repute, if you will. And Richie, still with his guitar, is, nervous, and Bob immediately finds a girl, and then the mariachi band starts playing, and he looks over, and who is it?
Los Lobos.
Los Lobos. They're so recognizable. Even then, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's Los Lobos. And they start playing Bamba.
Yeah.
La Bamba!
Hey, Richie, come here, man! Richie, I brought you here to get laid! Later. Para bailar la bamba.
And he walks up and starts playing with them on his guitar.
And that shows you that moment, walking away from all the available women that he could pay for and have, that Bob was going to, pay for, to go and listen to that song and play. That's what his real passion was.
You know what's interesting? So we're just saying that this doesn't follow the basic structure of the rock biopic. Well, all those rock biopics, Ray Charles or Johnny Cash or Elton John, those are all fucked up people.
Yep.
You know, is that they are people that, for as much as they're great musicians, they're dealing with a lot of internal pain.
Yeah.
And that internal pain is going to manifest itself through addiction and, you know, making all these bad choices. That's not Richie.
Bob fills that role in the movie.
That's a great point. If Bob had become the rock star, he would have had the classic rock biopic.
Yeah.
But that's not who becomes Richie. From the way the movie presents it, is a pure person. And then we cut to back home, knock on the door, rain, middle of the night, Rosie. She's sick, having the baby.
My God, where's Bob? For God's sake. I'm gonna get Richie. Okay? It's gonna be okay.
We cut to the daytime and a close-up of a dog. And Richie wakes up in a weird place, man.
Yeah.
There's like taxidermy animals hanging from the ceiling, and
snakes.
Up walks this old dude. And this guy, by the way, he's an actor from El Teatro Campesino, who was dying of throat cancer at the time that he filmed this. And he said this was his proudest. This guy had marched with Cesar Chavez. This was the real do. And this was one of his proudest moments.
I can see that.
And Bob rolls up. It says that he's been screwed, blued, and tattooed. Well, at least tattooed, because he has a tattoo. So did Richie get laid?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He drank a lot.
Seems like he drank a lot and got laid. Got that tattoo.
I'm going to believe that he didn't. I'm going to believe he got the tattoo and he got drunk, and I think he played with the band. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, we don't know. There's really gross when he skins a snake.
What's he saying?
He says life is a snake. A snake crawling out of its own dead skin. Like a dream.
And then we hear that this is Bob's sort of spiritual father.
Yeah.
And he gives Richie this necklace and says, and Bob translates for him,
To live is to sleep.
El morir es despertar.
To die is to awaken. I told him about your nightmares. That talisman will help if you believe in it.
If you believe in it. I love that line because I think that's 100% true. Is that even though I'm not religious and I don't, is that if things we place belief in do have power.
Power of the
question.
mind.
Absolutely. And I love this last moment.
What is all this?
Mexico.
That's great. And again, we get a great Carlos Santana guitar riff off of that. Mom's not happy.
Mexico? You went to Tijuana without telling anybody? A fine pair of sinvergüenzas. I could expect this from Bob, but not you, Richie.
And Richie asked about Rosie.
She was all alone in here. I had to drive her to the hospital myself. She was in labor all day with a baby. Do you hear me? Do you care about anything?
And Bob walks out, and Richie asked if it was a boy or a girl, which Bob did not ask. And it's a girl, and her name is Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda, even more Americanized.
Very American.
My dad wasn't there when I was born.
Yeah.
He was in Bolivia, working out some immigration thing for my uncle.
Was it in Virginia you were born, or
Yeah, no, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
So my mom had the baby by herself
Wow.
in Philadelphia. My dad didn't come home for 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 months.
It was a source of, it got brought up in the big fights whenever they had fights. It got brought up. It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we live in such, I don't want to say we live in a spoiled world because there's a lot of stuff that's hard. But the stuff that people had to do, you know, like my great-great-grandfather was born in a covered wagon. You know, like the stuff, the way people had to live and the stuff that the women in particular had to do.
Oh,
is
yeah.
A lot. And we cut to the finishing of his recording of Donna.
Oh, Donna, oh, Donna.
I think this and La Bamba are Lou's best performances.
Oh, yeah.
The passion that you see and the way that it's filmed and the voice of, I forget the name of the Los Lobos singer who does it. It's really beautiful. We're going over some tour dates, and one of them is flying to San Francisco. No, he's going to drive. He's not going to fly. This is all true, by the way. He had a real fear of flying. And Joey asked, we need another song to go along with Donna. And he says, I want to do La Bamba.
La Bamba. It's not rock and roll.
It is the way I play it.
No. It's a folk song. I don't want to offend anybody, okay? Besides, it's in Spanish.
That's how I want to sing it.
Rock and roll in Spanish. You got to be crazy.
And there's no, I mean, this is
It's a folk song.
Yeah, it's a Mexican folk song in Spanish. It's 1958, I think. And it's like, the idea that anyone would put this on the album, an album on this time is amazing.
A rock and roll album.
Rock and roll
like
album.
He says Nat King Cole had sung in Spanish before with the standard stuff, but a rock and roll Spanish song.
Well, and Nat King Cole, a big established star.
Exactly.
Who didn't change his name from a Mexican name to sound more American, and now you're going to put out a song in Spanish?
Yeah.
I love La Bamba. I always have. It's a great song. And it's where I first really started to learn about like the 3-chord songs.
Oh, yeah.
La Bamba's a 3-chord song. Twist and Shout, Beatles is a 3. There's so many songs that fit into exactly this chord progression.
Yeah.
But that is rock and roll.
Hell yeah.
But Richie's confident and calls Joey Bobo, which from now on I will call him Bobo because I don't remember his real name. Keen, I think it is.
Yeah.
Although he changed his name from Coon. We're driving along, and the song that's playing on the radio is "Hello, Baby." Is the Big Bopper?
The Big Bopper.
Yeah, Chantilly Lace.
Hello, baby.
Sounds like a dream, man.
Beats the hell out of taking the train.
And they talk about, okay, we're going to drive to San Francisco, but we got to go to American Bandstand in Philly, and we're going to fly there. And he accepts it. Bob trying to get in to see his daughter.
Man, damn it, I want to see my daughter! I'm her father!
This is among the worst.
But also it's finally revealed why he has such anger at times at his mom when he kicks the door and says,
You always worry me about Richie! What about me? What about me? I know you don't give a goddamn about me! You had me turned in! You had me locked up!
You had me locked up. You had me put in prison. Do you think I could ever forgive you for that shit? And then throws the thing through the window. So this is, we finally get to the source of Bob's anger about this whole situation. He feels like his family betrayed him.
Well, at the same time, though, Rosie is saying, you don't want a wife, you want a love slave that you can kick around.
Yeah.
Did we already pass the line where he says, essentially, I have to force her to have sex with me?
Yeah, back when they were with the bunny rabbit, that was that conversation.
We should talk about that.
Okay.
It is, and it's, this is the world. The world has changed in our perception of these things, but it's not that this movie treats this as an okay thing.
No.
Like the world that Rosie is in and how Bob behaves around her is pretty horrible.
But I'll tell you the truth, the world still exists. Like this for people of a certain upbringing or social class status. The relationships like this are standard, regardless of race.
Yeah.
It's standard, this terrible thing of like forcing themselves, and women feel like they have no avenue to fight back against this, unfortunately.
Well, this is most of history.
Yeah.
Women were treated as chattel, as the property, literally or figuratively, of their men. And it takes us a long time to, unlock these chains, and the idea of someone, as Rosie will later say, essentially being a sexual slave is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
We're on an airplane. Stewardess is hanging out drinks, and Bobo and Richie are on the plane, and Richie is really nervous. And he says, which his actual manager said he really did confide to him on a plane.
You know what, Bobo? I've always believed I was going to die in a plane crash.
I always believed I would die in a plane crash.
Yeah.
He really did believe this. This is not just made up for dramatic. There are some things that are made up, to enhance the drama. Like, for instance, the necklace. That's not real.
Right.
That didn't exist. But what Luis Valdez said, which I like, is that like sometimes in films what we had to do is to create through poetry and imagery things that are too complicated and subtle to sum up.
Yeah.
And he said that the necklace is a symbol both of the fear of flying and of the brothers and their relationship.
That's a good point.
And that this is really a movie about brothers.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is something they discovered in the process of talking to Bob and the family. They knew they wanted to do the story about this rock star. They didn't really knew that the story was really a story about brothers until they really got to know the people involved. And then the necklace became a symbol of that.
Yeah.
American Bandstand. We got Dick Clark. That is not, in fact, him introducing Richie. Apparently, there's only 2 or 3 pieces of film, like kinetoscope, of Richie Valens playing.
Yeah.
Almost no record visually of him playing music, which is kind of amazing because he's a star for like just shortest amount of time.
Yeah.
And he does Donna, and we cut to people watching, and we cut to Bob watching and drinking in a bar, and he's asked for more, and the bar, says you've had enough, and turns off the show.
Yep.
And this is where you see Bob's love for as much as he's jealous, as much as he's a self-destructive, difficult person who's angry at Richie. Don't turn off that's my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And then Bob comes home and collapses in front of his drawings and crumples them up.
Throws them out, tears them up.
Yep.
It's pure anger.
Donna with a friend at high school. Richie pulls up in a convertible, and all the kids come out and ask for autographs.
By the way, do you notice on her notebook? I noticed this time because I was watching the HD version. It says Richie on her notebook, and it says R&D on her notebook in a heart.
Oh.
So, as much as the father was keeping them apart, she apparently still had feelings for him.
Well, this is pure love.
Yeah.
Which honestly, you write a rock song for your girl, and then you die in a plane crash.
Yeah.
I wonder how Donna moves on from. It'd be interesting to talk to the real Donna and go like, what happened to you? Like, where'd you go after that?
Yeah.
I love that he has Donna sign the autographs.
Yeah, right. That's cool.
By the way, so all the students that asked for autographs, those are just extras. And Luis Valdez said, well, say something, ask for them. Because he didn't really realize that meant they had to Taft-Hartley them into SAG. and this is not a big budget film, but it cost them, probably cost them 10 grand or something to say, hey, can I have your autograph?
I bet they were happy.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet they didn't tell him a word.
No. Like, yes, sir, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were extras in movies, I know.
Yeah.
You wanted the director to say, you.
Oh, well, I was lucky. I was Taft-Hartley from day one.
Oh, that's
I've
right.
never worked a non-union day in my life, so I was very, very lucky.
They're off driving. It's a very sweet scene. And she's happy for him, and he says, I'm flying. I'm really flying. And then the house. He said he was going to buy her house, buy his mom a house.
Yeah.
I remember Elvis bought his mom a house. Yeah. I think Buddy Holly bought his mom a house. And those are the previous rock biopics that I knew.
Yeah.
Were the Buddy Holly story, and is it Kurt Russell? Is the Elvis
Kurt Russell's
one?
Elvis, the TV one.
And there's Bobo is there, and Bob pulls up, and the kids are just, this is rich, compared to where they came from, and this is Donna's world now. They're kind of moving into, and they go out back and talk about a pool and national television spots. And Bobo hands off the keys to the new house, and she gives all her attention to Richie and says, Richie, you're the best. And Bob walks out. Now we're at Alan Freed, New York. This is the best kind of concert in the movie.
It's awesome.
And we got Brian Setzer as Eddie Cochran.
Yeah.
His performance is great, doing Summertime Blues.
What's the matter, Richie? Nervous? Hey, man, I'm just a kid from Pacoima.
I'm gonna take 2 weeks home and have a fun vacation. I'm gonna take my problem to the United Nations. Well, I called my congressman and he said, quote, I'd like to help you, son, but you're too young to vote. Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, but there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
And Richie's backstage watching, and then we call in Jackie Wilson, who's Howard Huntsbury.
Does great Jackie Wilson.
Great Jackie Wilson.
This soundtrack's fantastic, by the way.
Lonely teardrops. My pillow never dries. Lonely teardrops. Come home, come home.
I think I must have had it, or maybe my roommate had it.
Oh, really?
Karen we were watching with Karen. She was like singing along. She knew all the songs because she had the soundtrack too.
Yeah.
It's too bad that we don't live in the world of soundtracks the way we used to. Because that was a fun. I own a ton of soundtracks.
Oh, yeah.
And we're kind of backstage, and great moments with Lou Diamond Phillips and Brian Setzer, and then they come back and say, "Hey, one of the Belmonts has a cold or something, and you got to go on early." Jackie Wilson finishes Lonely Teardrops, and he comes on stage, gets introduced as the California Kid, and there's this pause before he plays. And you got to have that moment before of like, oh, they're not going to like him.
He says, here's a bit of a rattlesnake.
Here's a bit of a rattlesnake. Boom. And then La Bamba.
Para bailar la bamba
great performance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great direction of it, the look of it, the colors, and then the lip syncing's fantastic.
If I didn't know that this wasn't him singing,
Oh yeah.
it just, and if I didn't know now that he'd never played guitar before,
Right.
to be able to lip sync is really hard. To be able to do a rock and roll performance and move your body is really hard. To do it while playing guitar, which you only learned a couple of months ago, for advanced guitar, I mean, he is great.
Yeah.
Well, and this thing, it's like we talked about, why is Luis Valdez not getting big movie contracts? Why is Lou Diamond Phillips never became the star that he should have been?
Yeah.
I think this is a star-turned performance on his part.
Absolutely.
He's great looking. He's hugely charismatic. He shows a lot of range. It's a full star.
Yeah.
And it's not that he hasn't had a career. He's had a career.
Yeah, he has. He's still working.
Still working.
Yeah, he does a bunch. Longmire. He was on Longmire for a few seasons.
And the reaction of the performance is obviously huge. Yeah. And he comes home, and we just hear as he's coming home in the dark about flying. He's not going to fly anymore. Yeah. And then surprise. Big surprise party. There's a guy filming. I love the guy filming is walking around with a lamp to light it. That was the DP's idea. He said he had done that.
Oh, wow.
And who was at the party? But the real Consuelo is at the party.
Oh.
And his sisters are at the party who were on the set for a lot. And Consuelo Connie, she died 6 months after the movie came out.
Oh my God.
She'd had cancer. She had cancer while they were filming this, I think. And she lived to see the movie come out, and it was super important to her and her family. Yeah. And Bob is being kind of a jerk.
Yep.
And Bob is sober. He's been on the wagon. Yeah. And he asked kind of, where's that dress that I asked you to buy, Mom, for Christmas? And he says, you're the asshole with all the money. Why don't you buy it yourself? And one of the relatives or uncle says, he's meaner on the wagon than he is when he's drinking. Yeah. And later we're back kind of in Richie's room or Bob's room, and he's looking at that picture of Steve, the dad, and in comes Richie and kind of asks about him. How you doing? And this is where we get it. Yeah. I think this scene is great.
Yeah.
Old Steve, boy. You always said you were going to be somebody, and I bought it too. If that's the way Steve wanted it, that's the way it was going to be. Even after he told me he wasn't my dad. Then when I knew the full score, I understood. See, I realized why he always treated you just a little bit better than me. Okay? I said, I'll just hang around and take the leftovers. Like a dog. That's how much I love him. Like a goddamn dog!
Look, Bob, we don't have to talk about this right now.
No! Shit, no, I want to talk about this right now, and you're going to listen to me.
This is a crock of shit, man.
This is a brothers fight.
Yeah.
And it gets brutal, and things that are said are horrible, but Richie says, I ain't Rosie, I'm going to fight back.
Yeah.
And that's a really strong indictment on Bob, and they go out, and it ends with Bob ripping that necklace off.
And the moment where that necklace gets ripped off is profound.
Yeah.
I think it's profound for a lot of reasons. One, it's profound because the brothers realize that they've been fighting and what they've said and that something is broken because the necklace is the symbol of the brothers and something's broken between them.
Yeah.
It's also something because we know he's about to die in a plane crash.
Yep.
And we know that this was the thing, if you believed in it, that would keep the dreams away and the talisman to protect you, and now he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
Yep.
And he's in the car with Donna and he's defending Bob. He didn't mean it. He's just hurt. And there's this moment where he says, I will always love you.
I love you, Donna. I will always love you.
Sounds so serious.
I am.
Well, and this is what, because we know where the movie's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Will you wait for me?
Yeah, for how long? Forever?
No. No, just till I'm 25, and then I'll have a big glass cabinet and I'll keep all my gold records in it. How's that, huh?
And then there's a kiss. And then it's winter, which wasn't winter, shot in the middle of summer. That's like styrofoam pellets that are flying through the air.
Yeah.
It's like 98 degrees. It looks great. And the bus is broken down. You could see the bus driver there. The Big Bopper is up performing Chantilly Lace.
Yeah.
Richie is sick, calling home to Bobo saying, this is terrible. Apparently a dude got frostbite on that bus.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're going through, 20 below and there's no heat on the bus. Everyone has the flu.
Yeah.
Everyone's sick. And
welcome to promoters.
Yeah. And Bobo's, but he's nice. He's like, no, come home. You're sick. Forget it. And he goes, no, I'm going to go on with the tour. And then Richie calls Bob.
Yeah.
And Bob's first thing is, you sound funny. And he goes, oh, well, I got a cold, and asks about Mom, and that they're all gone and went to church. And then Richie says,
Listen, Bob, why don't you fly out to Chicago and meet me, man? We can finish out the tour together. You know, I really gotta have some family around me.
and there's this reaction, great reactions from Isa Morales of, because they're it's still in the, are we still fighting?
Yeah.
You sure you want me around after all that happened, all the shit I said?
And his response is really interesting because he doesn't deny it. He says,
Hey, those were your real feelings, man. I mean, we're still brothers, aren't we?
so he doesn't go like put it under the table.
Right.
He says, no, that's the truth, but we're still brothers.
Yeah.
Bob? Are you still there?
Yeah, cabron. I'm still here. And I'm still your brother.
Boom.
Yeah.
That scene always breaks me because I don't have the best relationship with my brother. So like we haven't spoken really consistently in 24 years.
Wow.
And so that scene is a scene that I've always wanted to have, but I will never have with my brother because of the way he's built. And that's not a judgment, it's just the way he looks at the world. So that scene always like gets me. Even when I was rewatching it last night, I started crying because it's just like, it's that thing of like, just because people fight doesn't mean things are irrecoverably broken, you know, and
Even when there's been truth.
even when there's been truth,
And the
right.
truth's out there.
Yeah. You know, and and I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Lily. Our first few times we fought in our relationship, I immediately was like, I guess it's over. And she would always be like, what have you been in that you think a fight means something is over? And she has been amazing in getting me to understand that just because somebody fights, it doesn't mean a relationship is over. So like sometimes that's why I love this scene, because there's real honesty between them in that moment as brothers. Like, you know, both him saying like Bob taking the responsibility, which is really important. Bob takes the responsibility and Richie understands that and extends the olive branch as well, saying, no, I wish you were here. I want my family with me. It means a lot to him.
Well, because Bob wouldn't extend the olive branch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
Richie has to do, which is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is where it's like, oh, this is why this isn't a biopic in the traditional sense.
Agreed.
Because this is a movie about two brothers.
Exactly.
This is actually, yes, we love seeing him become the star. We love the success of La Bamba, the big music, all that stuff. But this is about not resolving a relationship, but creating a bridge to maintain a difficult relationship out of love for family and for your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
All right, man. I'll see you in Chicago.
Later, alligator.
And this is where we find out that Buddy Holly has chartered a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to look it up because I always forget. There was the other guy who had traded places is Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings was almost on that plane but didn't go. And now we got the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and there's a coin flip with Tom, I forget what his name is, one of the guys in the band.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't go, and we end up on the plane. And there's just a great look from a sick Richie.
Yeah.
As Buddy Holly says,
Hey, Richie, relax, man. Everything's cool. Besides, the sky belongs to the stars, right?
and the plane goes to take off, and it goes out of frame, and we'll just look at the snow for a while.
Yeah.
That's the right choice. They disappear.
1,000,000% the right choice. Yeah.
And
you don't want to see them screaming and crying as the plane is going down. That's why I think it was a big mistake for Spielberg to show Lincoln's death afterwards, lying on that bed and the candle. It was a big mistake. Just let it end in that moment and go to some kind of remembrance.
Well, because this is this moment in history, which I knew the song American Pie before I knew about Richie Valens and Buddy Holly.
Me too.
And the Big Bopper.
Yep.
And it was only like in learning about the song that I then learned about this idea of the day the music died.
Yeah.
You know, and what that was as the news went out. And that's, of course, where we're going to go, is that Bob is under the car working on it, and the radio is playing, and they start talking about this plane crash. And
Rick
Buddy
Dees
Holly
calling about it.
Oh, is it Rick Dees?
Yeah, it's Rick Dees talking about it.
And Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, and then they say Richie Valens.
What the shit?
And he comes out, and then Elizabeth Pena comes out.
Oh, the baby's crying.
The baby's crying.
Did you hear what the radio said about Richie?
Are you sure he said Richie?
And then there's this, oh shit, Mom.
Oh my God. What about Connie?
And I think in watching this that maybe she hasn't heard yet, and they're going to have to tell her.
Yeah.
But then we come around the corner and we see her.
And I love the reality of Esai Morales hurting his shin, jumping over the fence.
Yeah.
It's a little moment,
Yeah.
but it's a real moment.
And he really did hurt himself.
See? It's a good moment.
Yeah.
All right.
And then her reaction of throwing that laundry, she was putting laundry up, is just,
No.
And now,
No.
selection in honor of the dead.
Not Richie. Not my Richie.
Not my Richie, Bob.
yeah, it gets me. It's getting me right now. And him taking her in. And again, we're not going to spend time in this moment. I'd say 75, 80% of the time, the job of films is to cut away.
Yeah.
Is like the plane takes off, cut away.
Yeah.
You hear the news, we don't need to stay here. And there's almost like a respect for the privacy of the characters. But it's also, I don't want to stick the camera in someone's face right now. Let it live. Let us process it. And then we cut to Donna. And this is really how she found out. Is that every one of the people at the school knew and were upset. And she hadn't heard yet. And they told her.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And there's the funeral and cars lining up to go to the cemetery. And then there's Bob on the bridge alone. And then we dissolve to that shot from earlier of them running up the hill with the guitar.
Right.
And then we cut to, it's credits.
Yeah.
And we cut back to Richie playing La Bamba at that performance.
Yeah. Sleepwalk starts us.
Yep.
Sleepwalk ends us.
Yep.
And that Richie scream is still, for me, it's one of the top 10 screams on camera ever on film, because it's just
Have you done a top 10 show on this yet?
No, but that could be a conversation we could have, because that Richie scream is incredible. I would put that on the No scream from The Abyss that Ed Harris has.
That's it, boy.
There are some great screams in film, and that's one of them. Like, just it comes from his gut through his soul, out of his mouth to heaven.
Yeah.
And it's so fantastic.
This made $130 million at the box office.
Incredible.
Yeah, which is off a fairly small budget. Yeah. It was the most successful rock biopic up to that point. The most successful Latino film up to that point. Luis, I looked at his IMDb, and it's like he worked.
Yeah.
He's still alive. He still works. But like nobody handed him another movie.
Yeah.
Like you think about all the directors who are white guys.
Yeah.
And they make a moderately successful film, and they work for the rest of their lives. And and a lot of them where you go, why is this guy, I'm not going to name names.
I'll name names, but yeah, okay.
Still making films.
Right.
And a guy like Luis Valdez, who is a brilliant, Zoot Suit too, because Zoot Suit is like structurally a completely unique film.
Yeah.
And then this, which is a hugely successful emotional rock biopic, and they go, no, we don't need to make any more of those. And Latino Stories is like, okay, this movie made $130 million, but you know what? People aren't going to come to see a Latino film.
Right.
John, nobody's going to come.
It's certainly possible that was the case, or that is the case. It's also certainly possible that he's like William Friedkin or these other people who could only had 2 or 3 great films in them.
Absolutely. I don't know.
Reach it after that. We don't know. You're right.
But how many movies did William Friedkin make after that?
Yeah, I know. He's still, occasionally he'll do something. Walter Hill as well. How many times does Walter Hill get a chance to shoot a film again? And you're like, none of these work. Or Rob Cohen is still somehow directing films.
And this is the thing, is like, there's this idea in Hollywood that people are only going to see what's already been proven that they like. And even when the new thing is proven, look, they went to see that. It's like, well, that's probably a fluke. Oh, so what, Wonder Woman? It's probably a fluke.
Right.
No, it wasn't. People actually went to see it because it's a good movie.
Yep.
I'll go first for final thoughts. Okay. It was great to revisit this movie.
Yeah.
What I found so interesting about it was how unique it was structurally, is that this isn't a rock biopic. This is a story about a family. It's a story about 2 brothers. It's in an era that I absolutely love. And it's with a character. Richie's not a flawed guy.
No.
He is just a great, wonderful person. And it's just this, and because this is a movie heading towards tragedy, it puts everything in this different kind of focus. And to me, it was just proof that Latino stories are human stories. That if the story is good, if the characters are interesting, I'm going to be moved by it. And just reading through my notes and getting to some of those moments with Bob, or to the moments of his death, it's like, man, I'm still moved.
Yeah.
And I love this music. I love the era of this music. I really like listening to it. I played a bunch of it for my son. I hope that he likes it too. I don't know. But his, those few songs of Richie Valens plus the Buddy Holly songs is just, and Eddie Cochran and Jackie Wilson. This is just a great area of music, and I'm really, really glad you suggested we revisit it.
Yeah, I'm glad you were up for it. It's one of my favorite films that I still come back to all the time. It's never a chore to watch it. It's never a chore to stop and revisit it again. It still every time I watch it still feels like the first time I'm watching it. I think it was such a poignant film for me to watch at a certain time in my life when I was myself a Latino living in a predominantly white area or city rather, and having to see my story on the screen or stories of my people on the screen. It meant a lot to see that. And you could tell this was a Latino film. There is hardly any semblance of a white vibe to the movie, and I appreciated that. And I got so much out of that. And it's still, to me, a trailblazing film in that way. It's a rock biopic, but Steve, you make a great point. It's about family and brotherhood and what that means. And it's almost, he just happens to be a rock star. The story is about these brothers and figuring out their relationship from beginning to end. From that first hug of haven't seen you in forever to that last conversation on the phone, and everything that happens in between. It's a very layered relationship with some difficulties and some beautiful moments as well of connection. And that's what really decorates the film to me and makes it why you should come back and watch it over and over again. Because the human stories are what make us love film. And even in superhero movies, the best superhero movies are the ones where they just happen to be superheroes, but it's about the human story occurring within them. And this film really captures it. And thank God for Luis Valdez. I think without him doing what he did, there wouldn't have been other Latino filmmakers coming in the 90s, and certainly now with Inarritu and Del Toro and Cuarón, all these filmmakers coming through and doing their things. And thank God.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
God. Yeah.
So that's what we think of. I literally just forgot what movie we were talking about.
You white person.
Yes, it was racism. So that's what we think of La Bamba. Of course, we always want to hear what you think. Visit us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you thought of it. Search for the Cine-Files. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. Leave reviews on iTunes, comments on YouTube. Help support the show on patreon.com/the Cine-Files. If you want to watch La Bamba or any other movie we've ever done, visit cinephiles.net. As always, you can reach me on Twitter at SRMorris. John, where can they reach you?
You can always reach me at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And thank you, everybody, for downloading our episodes and talking to us, leaving comments. It means so much. And hopefully we turned you on to La Bamba.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing I almost forgot.
Yes.
We are coming up on our 150th episode, and we're going to do another Q&A. So if you have questions for the Cine-Files, please send them to our email address. That's the Cine-Files1941, the year of Citizen Kane, at gmail.com. The Cine-Files1941 at gmail.com for all your Q&A needs. And that is it for this week. We will see you next time on the Cine-Files.